Thank you. Well, I am doing double duty this morning. I'm the facilitator, and I get to introduce myself as the speaker. Again, my name is Sara Drew, and I'm the outreach coordinator here at First Existentialist. And as it pertains to today's presentation, I'm a Labyrinth facilitator through the organization Veriditas, which is based in San Francisco and was founded by Lauren Artress. And I can give you more information about that if you're interested. I'd like to, I could talk for hours, but none of you signed up for that. So I'm going to try to pick my favorite things and give you sort of a general orientation to the labyrinth. So this is a labyrinth here on the floor. There are many different kinds. This is called a classical labyrinth. That's the style. Do any of you have experience with labyrinths? A little bit? Okay. Feel free to add in what I've missed as we go along here. So this one on the floor is a classical labyrinth. This one here is much more elaborate, much more ornate. It is the shape, the style of it is copied from a real walking labyrinth in Chartres, France. It's in a cathedral in the tile of the floor, but it has the same sort of hallmarks, which are, number one thing, a labyrinth and a maze are not the same thing. They look, at first glance, they look the same, but they're not the same, and this is the big difference. A maze, and if you imagine those like back of the cereal box situations, right? You can make a wrong turn in a maze. You can get stuck. In our like pop culture versions of a maze, you can run into like a monster, whatever. That's not how a labyrinth works. There are no wrong turns in a labyrinth. There's one path. There's one entrance, and if you ever, this one's fairly obvious here, but if you're ever like, where do I start? You follow the outside ring, and the break in the outside ring is the entrance, always. And so there is almost always one entrance. So it's meant for one single person to walk by themselves. Not that more than one person can't be in the labyrinth at the same time, but you enter individually and you walk it individually, even if there's other people there. There are a couple specialty labyrinths where there are two entrances. There are some really beautiful ones that are meant for like wedding ceremonies, where one person enters on one side, another person enters on the other side, and they wind their ways around and they meet in the middle, and they have a marriage ceremony, sometimes even in the middle of the labyrinth, with their like guests around the outside. It's really beautiful. There's also another version which has two entrances, which is interesting. It's a conflict resolution labyrinth, which I have never seen in action, but it is interesting. So there's all different styles. This one is classical because it mimics the style found in like Greece and Rome. And this one is more ornate, the Chartres labyrinth, more medieval, ornate. But really, they're kind of a mystery. So many of them are outside, and so archaeologically they've been finding them, and like, what was this? Who put this here? Where did this come from? The earliest one that they've been able to date, there's one that's prehistoric petroglyph in India that they can't be sure, but they're guessing that it's from 1200 BC. They have definitively dated a drawing of a labyrinth in Greece in a stone tablet from 1200 BC. So we know that they have been around for a really long time. There's lots of surmising of what they were doing. They're all over the world, but there's high concentrations in Europe and in North Africa. And so there's been a lot of guessing, figuring out research into what those ancient people were doing with this labyrinth. Why was it important to them? I'm going to read you this little passage from this book called Walking a Sacred Path, Rediscovering the Labyrinth. And this maybe educated guess is the way to say it, surmises that the labyrinth is an ancient map of the cosmos. In researching the labyrinth, it doesn't take long to find your way into books naming the paths for the planets. The Chartres labyrinth articulates an ancient cosmology, much as the medicine wheel does for Native American culture. Keith Critchlow believes the source of the labyrinth cosmology is the most likely from Macrobius's commentary on Cicero's dream of Scipio. The book was known to have been in the library at the school of Chartres before the cathedral was built. According to the theory, the earth was set at the center of the labyrinth. The consecutive circles of paths held the moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The three outermost paths represented the powers of soul, mind, and supreme God. Understood in Neoplatonic as well as Christian terms, the person who chooses to walk the labyrinth is reenacting the descent of the soul into manifestation on earth at the center. This moves the seeker through the levels of personality, eventually to reflect on the one when it started to fall into differentiation, as well as reflection on the mind and soul. Upon entering the labyrinth, we sense that it is a symbol representing the whole. A world of splits and divisions disappears for a few contented minutes. The seeker enters a non-dualistic world where clear thinking through the channel of intuition has a chance to emerge from deep within. This awareness of whole facilitates both and thinking. The compatibility of the paradox and sense of the unity within the cosmos. With a shift to Cartesian thought, the labyrinth fell into disuse. This map of the cosmos with the earth at its center was discredited. In our drive to embrace the new religion of empirical science, the value of this ancient tool was dismissed, yet the tool itself remained intact through the centuries. And from my perspective, it has come back around. So this book highlights how the labyrinth was discredited, but now there has been some research around what actually does happen. Like, why is walking the labyrinth scientifically perhaps helpful? And the most impactful thing I have encountered, and I think know to be true for myself, is that it is symbolic of a journey, right? You start, you make your way to the center, this climax of your journey. It might be small, might be the journey of a day, might be large, maybe a journey of a lifetime. There's a lot of parallels to pregnancy and birth evident in Labyrinth and Labyrinth work. And then you walk back out. On a scientific brain level, there is some conjecture that the reason why a labyrinth works, quote unquote works, is because unlike a spiral, if you imagine following a spiral all the way in, your brain can plan, or even like a straightaway, right? If we were gonna walk from this door to the end of the block, subconsciously, we can't help ourselves. We're like, I'm halfway there. I'm 3/4 there. I'm almost there. It's getting hot. Can I make it? Right? Like we just subconsciously map out how long it's going to take us, how we're going to feel, what's going to happen along the way. We like make all these plans. It's what we do for most journeys in life, actually, right? We like preemptively decide or worry or make exceptions for what's going to happen when we get there. And the labyrinth throws a wrench in that because it's not a spiral, right? We don't have a clear understanding as we're walking when we're going to get there. Because if you look at the entrance here of this one on the floor, right? The entrance is where the break in the outside ring is. That's really close to the center. If you just decided instead to step over that line, you would pretty much be in the center. But actually, you still have to walk through the whole thing. And that's why people use it for birth a lot, because this is what I've been saying for years. I'm open to argument about it. But that's why it's used in with pregnant people and in the concept of giving birth, because you can think you know what your due date is all you want, but that baby's going to come when that baby's going to come, right? And so it's like you can feel really close, but it could still be a mile away, or you could be there before you know it. Like anything can happen. It's like, there are ways, of course, that we control when a baby is going to come in our society, but if left to the body's own devices, we can't plan the precision of that. And there's lots of other things that we just can't know what would happen. And so the labyrinth helps us sort of, in a meditative way, work our way through that. I became really interested in the labyrinth when I was a yoga teacher, because I started to put a whole lot of stock into this idea that our society separates our mind and our body, right? I'm talking about myself. I train for marathons and I do all this academic work, right? Like two totally separate things. And then I do yoga and I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, sort of integrating these two things. And if you have a yoga practice, that might be really familiar with you. But if you don't have a yoga practice, I'll just say that in my lineage of yoga, the poses, like for instance, this is warrior pose. Right. I'm a warrior. I'm like ready, right? It's like very powerful pose. And that's what your body is doing. But your mind, this is my understanding of was happening for me in that yoga practice through all the different poses. But warrior pose, for example, your body is like, I'm a warrior, I'm strong, I'm ready, I'm coming, right? Like I'm going to be successful. And your mind is working your way through that. So some people will be in warrior pose and be like, I hate this, which makes sense because not everybody wants to be a warrior, right? It's not comfortable for all people. And some people, that's their favorite because they're very like overtly aggressive, either literally in life or internally, right? So you can start to like understand yourself through how you feel in different poses. All that to say, for me, I was looking for ways to marry the physical experience of processing things with the internal thought processes. And I came to the conclusion, I still hold this conclusion, that we can go to all the talk therapy that we want, and we can do all the physical things that we want, but if we do both, and particularly if we integrate them, things will be more congruent. That's my take. And so the labyrinth is a really accessible way to do that, right? You don't even, you can walk through the labyrinth. You don't need to. You could roll through the labyrinth if you needed to in a wheelchair, right? Even if that was a problem, this is what's called a finger labyrinth. And so you are using your finger to follow the path all the way through. And so even though, you might argue this is like not that much movement, it does allow you to process. If you think of like a rosary or mala beads, right? Same thing. You're moving through something as you're processing it emotionally, maybe intellectually. You're, in my opinion, marrying the thought with the movement, even if it's a small movement. And so this is a very, very simple labyrinth. I personally think the longer ones, because they allow you more, but you could do this one 10 times and it would be the same situation. But I prefer the bigger ones when I'm really working through something, just because it gives me more processing time to sort of chew on it. The way you can tell how big, how long, because you could tell size, but that doesn't really tell you how many times you'll have to go around, is the number of paths to the center. So the wood stripes between the blue are the paths, and so you count from the outside 1, 2, 3 paths to center. That's a 3-circuit labyrinth. And so you can see this one has many more, I think 11 without counting. And so they can be, untold size. And many of them are, but that tells you how big it is. There is one I want to tell you, the best one I found in Atlanta so far is at St. Philip Cathedral in Buckhead. They have a beautiful, big outdoor labyrinth. And when they're not using it, which is almost all the time, you can just walk it to your heart's content. There might be other people there with you, but that is totally fine. Yeah, and so, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I just thought about beautiful big outdoor labyrinths.
Yeah.
I don't know which one you might be talking about, but it was about 3 or 4 years ago. I visited my sister on the Olympic Peninsula. We took a trip over to Bainbridge Island, and they had a huge labyrinth.
Cool.
That we would walk through. And so I was able to do that, and it was quite a beautiful area.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to say this, but I should say it. There's a resource called Labyrinth Finder, and you can Google it, Labyrinth Finder. And so if you're on vacation or if you're at home, you can put in your zip code and it will tell you all the labyrinths that are close to you. And there'll be anything from these big, huge public things, like show up whenever you want to show up, to random people's backyards that have put them in their backyard, and they say, feel free, there'll be directions, feel free, don't come after dark, they'll give you some directions around what they prefer you do if you want to use their labyrinth. They're all over the world on Labyrinth Finder. Yeah. When I was getting really interested in labyrinths and decided I wanted to become a facilitator, I went to Ghost Ranch, which is in Abiquiu, New Mexico, and they have a really nice big public labyrinth. It's in the high desert, so it's the desert and then mountains behind. It's beautiful. Ghost Ranch is beautiful. Abiquiu is beautiful. One of my favorite places. And then they have Ghost Ranch has many, many acres, and not all of them are open to the public because they're trying to conserve the land, the animals, the plants. And so they have one labyrinth that's special permission only, but because I was in this labyrinth facilitator training, we got to do it, and it was heart-shaped. And there's a lot of different ways you can use a labyrinth, which I'll get into in a minute, because you're all welcome to use this one as soon as I stop talking, which I'm getting close to. It was a heart-shaped labyrinth, and one of the things to consider when you're looking at a labyrinth is how wide the paths are. The idea is if they're very narrow paths, that you have to be more paying attention, because you can't, you don't have much room for error. But if they're wide paths, the openness pervades your consciousness as well as your physical making your way through the paths. So this one's pretty wide, actually. And that heart labyrinth was pretty wide at Ghost Ranch. And we started walking it, we're given permission, but like, be very careful. Don't do anything. Don't leave anything. Don't drop anything. Don't, be very careful in this like conservation land. And the wind picked up and the clouds rolled in. And I just had this like very visceral experience in that heart-shaped labyrinth. And in that moment, what I had decided, I was like trying a bunch of different stuff in different walks. And in that moment, I decided just to listen, which is one of the options. You start at that threshold to the entrance and you can decide what to do. And I'll give you some options for that in a second. But I was just like, tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you want me to hear. And I heard, it's going to be okay. And I was like, that wind washed over me. And so that was my like, well, I'm in. Whatever a labyrinth wants to tell me, I'm open from there on out. So I'll tell you one more story before I give you some ideas for your own labyrinth walk. Lauren R. Tress, who's the founder of Veritas, she's giving the orientation the same way that I'm about to give to you. And she's like, I don't want to be so specific to tell you like what's going to happen for you. It's very existentialist, actually. Like, you get to do what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but here's some options just so you're not like flailing out there like, what the heck's going on? She said she had one woman. She walked through the labyrinth and she came back out and she was like, how did it go? Like, what did you think? What happened? And she said, well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't really get anything out of it. She said, there was one point where I like think I heard angels singing, but otherwise, like, I didn't really get much. And she was like, well, you might want to reassess what you imagine success to be, So it's a funny joke, but like, be open is like one of the things you might take away to that, to deciding what success is. Basically, this like, general framework is that when you stand at the threshold, you just take a moment and choose, essentially, like, is there an intention? Do you want to listen? Do you want to ask a question? Do you want to pick a mantra? Like, do you just want to see what happens? But being intentional about, okay, I'm entering this journey, and then finding a normal walking pace. You don't want to race. You don't want to like, belabor it. But you want to be intentional about each step so that it's not just the same as like walking down the sidewalk. And then again, making your way through the middle, maybe noticing internally what happens when you feel like you're close, when you feel like you're far, if you want to like, sort of be a scientist around that idea of your brain, guessing where you're going and what's going to happen, just to sort of take note of what happens for you there. And then again, in the middle, pause. You can pause for as long as you want. Maybe really thinking about that journey that you're on, whatever capacity that is. And then when you feel ready, same thing, on your way out, sort of, making your way home from the center. Does anybody have any questions? It is a relatively small labyrinth, and there are a bunch of us. So general labyrinth courtesy is just to like not be on somebody's tail, like making them feel like they need to rush. And but you can pass each other. You can pause. Just try to be generally no talking. Generally, if you need to communicate with someone, which maybe you won't need to, but if you do, just with like a nod of a head or whatever. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Did Carl talk about the labyrinth?
Not that I know of. Do you know of?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to write it down so I can look it up. I have not heard that, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And you two raise your hands about having some experience with labyrinths. Did I leave anything out that you think is important that you want to share? No? Thinking? Okay. All right. Yeah, so Kathy and Jean are going to accompany us with some music while we walk. Is that right? And you can just, as you feel willing, ready, you can enter the labyrinth and try it out for yourself.
They're like three, how many entrances?
There's one entrance.
Which is right here.
That's right. you. Anybody have any reflections? It's not necessary, but yeah.
It was very powerful.
Oh, would you like?
Putting this out here.
You're welcome. Would you like to say more?
I just got this message that everything I need will come to me.
Oh, I love it. It's my favorite message. Yeah, go ahead.
So it made me think of Dante. So this endless procession of souls. Maybe so it's a little image from.
Yeah. Yeah. This particular labyrinth is very easy to create, to draw, to put on the floor. So if you ever want to do it, it's very easy. It basically starts with that cross that you see near the entrance. You can Google it, like how to draw a labyrinth, and it will come up. And it has you put the cross and then 4 dots, and you just pretty much connect one to the next, to the next, to the next. So this is a very easy, this is less than 1 roll of painter's tape, and it took me probably, once I figured out what I was doing, not that long, maybe half an hour to put together, so it's really accessible. Yeah, and the other thing that I find really interesting, I'm not a scientist enough person to know this for sure, but another reason that they surmise that a labyrinth helps as a meditation tool is because in addition to that inability to plan beginning to end, you're taking right turns and you're taking left turns, and that sort of like quote unquote balances the brain. So when your inability to plan alongside that, like turning, they find a lot of, they have found in a couple of research studies that it's very good with kids who have some, hyperactivity or behavioral diagnosis, that it has been a helpful tool for kids also. Thank you for indulging me and enjoying the labyrinth. If you want to see any of the resources up here, this is a ancient First E artifact here. And First E's logo is sort of, you probably can't see it from there, but you can come look closer. It comes from this drawing here, but if you're a scholar, you know that that's not a real labyrinth because there are many entrances and you can get stuck. So just by the way, don't tell anybody. Thank you all so much for indulging me with that. We have one more congregational song, and it is called Turn, Turn, Turn. We're going to come back to the piano. Jean, you want us to come back to the piano? And there is a special word sheet. It's actually over there on the name tag table, but maybe if we have just a couple up here, we can share them too.
This is what it looks